If I told you that you could manifest anything 110x faster than you ever imagined, would you dare to believe me? Or would you wait for proof before you begin? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to manifest anything faster, as if reality itself bends to their will, while others wait years for their desires to unfold? The truth is, your ability to manifest 110x faster has nothing to do with luck, chance, or the generosity of life. It comes from applying proven methods that work every time you dare to use them. These aren't theories. They are laws as real as gravity. When you step into the awareness that your inner state is the true cause, you begin to work with the law of assumption at a level most people never touch. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, not tomorrow, not someday, but now, you trigger an invisible chain reaction. The outer world, which you have been taught to chase and wrestle with, is only the echo. Your inner reality, vivid and alive, is the cause. And when you hold it unwaveringly, the delay between imagining and experiencing dissolves. This is how your manifesting techniques truly work. Not by asking, not by waiting, but by becoming. Close your eyes and see it as already yours. Not as a hope, but as a fact. Touch it in imagination until it feels more real than the chair you sit on. Let the taste, the sound, the weight of it live within you. This is how you speed up manifestation to a degree that defies logic. Your reality will conform because it has no choice but to reflect the image you carry within. Once this truth becomes more than an idea, once it is lived, the pace at which life delivers your desires will stun you. Now let's go deeper. The world will tempt you to measure progress by appearances. But appearances are nothing more than the past made visible. They are shadows of yesterday's assumptions. To accelerate your manifestations, you must learn the sacred art of ignoring the evidence of the senses when it contradicts your inner conviction. This is the key to manifestation success that most overlook. Every powerful manifestation method begins with this single discipline. Dwell in the end until the end dwells in you. These are not fantasies. They are the blueprints from which the universe builds. Your task is not to make it happen, but to hold the scene of the wish fulfilled until it hardens into fact. If you understand that imagination creates reality, then you understand that your only work is to select and sustain the image. This is conscious creation, the power to manifest your desires quickly and with precision. The outer world is slow, bound by time and sequence, but the inner world is instant. Learn to live there more than you live here, and you will witness spiritual manifestation secrets at work in every area of your life. When you master this, dreams will no longer be distant goals, but immediate experiences, waiting only for your agreement to step into them. The inner state is the secret architecture of your life, the hidden architect shaping every event, encounter, and opportunity you experience. Before a single thing appears in your external world, it is first formed, cultivated, and sustained within the quiet chambers of your mind. Most people believe they are reacting to the world, yet they fail to see that the world is reacting to them, specifically to the state they most consistently inhabit. A state is more than a fleeting thought or a passing emotion. It is a sustained combination of feeling, belief, and mental imagery that you accept as true about yourself and life. You may change your thoughts 100 times in a day, but if the underlying state remains the same, your life will not change. The state you live from becomes the seedbed of every circumstance you encounter. It is not the outer action, the effort, or the hustle that produces the transformation. It is the invisible stance of being you hold in the silence of your own consciousness. To understand this, consider the difference between someone who is always in a state of lack and someone who lives in a state of abundance. The first may repeat affirmations about wealth and success all day, but if deep within they still feel small, undeserving, or doubtful, The outer world will mirror that inner poverty. Conversely, the second may speak little of wealth, yet everything about their inner atmosphere is saturated with the knowing that supply flows to them freely. It is not the words, but the vibration of being that summons the outer results. The inner state is not hidden from the world, as you might imagine. Though invisible, it announces itself in your tone of voice, your posture, the quality of your decisions, and the subtle signals you send in every interaction. People respond to you according to the state you present, often without realizing it. Opportunities either appear or vanish in accordance with the inner climate you maintain. This is why two people in the same situation can produce radically different outcomes. One draws success to themselves effortlessly, while the other struggles against resistance at every turn. The difference lies not in the conditions, but in the states they occupy. Your state is not determined by the outer world. It is self-chosen, though most allow it to be chosen for them by circumstances. The moment you understand, you have the authority to choose your inner state, regardless of what the senses report. You step into the true power of creation. This is where the acceleration of manifestation begins. The world is slow to change because people wait for evidence before they assume a new state. They wait for the job to feel successful, for the relationship to feel loved, for the money to feel abundant. In doing so, they place themselves in the position of effect rather than cause. But the law is reversed. You feel the state first, and then the outer world confirms it. When you hold the inner conviction of being the one who already has what they desire, you are planting a living seed in the soil of reality. The seed does not consult the weather before it grows. It grows because it is alive, because the blueprint of what it is to become is already contained within it. So it is with your inner state. It carries within it the pattern and certainty of the life that will unfold from it. This requires discipline, for the senses will often tempt you back into the old state. The bank balance, the silence of the phone, the empty calendar, all of these may cry out, nothing has changed. But these are only echoes of a former state, shadows of an identity you no longer claim. You must learn to ignore them, as you would ignore the fading glow of a sunset, knowing that a new day has already begun beyond your sight. To shift your state, you must saturate your mind with the sensory reality of the desired condition until it becomes more convincing than the evidence around you. This is not idle wishing. It is a deliberate act of creation. You dwell in the scene of your fulfilled desire, not as an observer, but as a participant, feeling its truth so completely that your nervous system accepts it as fact. When the state is accepted, the shift is complete, and the outer world will align without your forcing it. Once you live from the new state consistently, life reorganizes itself with astonishing speed. You will find that events, people, and resources seem to rush toward you, as though compelled by an unseen magnet. But that magnet is simply the state you now occupy, the being you have chosen to be. The inner state precedes the outer fact, and when you grasp this, you no longer live as a passive receiver of circumstances, but as the deliberate author of your reality. The law of assumption is the master key to shaping reality, the invisible law that turns your inner convictions into outer facts. To work with it is to recognize that your world is not molded by random chance, nor by the force of external events, but by the assumption you hold about yourself and your life. An assumption is not a casual thought. It is a belief so accepted that it becomes the foundation of your perception. It colors everything you see, hear, and experience, and because you live from it rather than toward it, it cannot help but reproduce itself in form. Most people live as though they are separate from what they desire, constantly chasing it, as if it exists somewhere far beyond reach. They tell themselves that once the condition changes, they will finally feel fulfilled. But this waiting is the very reason their desires remain distant. The law of assumption demands that you reverse the process. You are to feel the reality of your desire as though it were already yours, not because you are pretending, but because you are claiming your rightful identity in the unseen before it becomes visible. When you understand this, you stop approaching life as if it were a negotiation. You no longer plead with the outer world to deliver your desire. Instead, you assume the state of having it now. This is not wishful thinking. It is a conscious alignment of your mind and feeling to a reality that already exists in potential. Just as a seed contains the full image of the tree it will become, your assumption contains the full blueprint of the life it will produce. You do not question whether the seed will grow once planted in fertile soil. You simply trust the law of growth. Likewise, the assumption, once planted in your consciousness and nourished by belief, must take root and emerge into form. The great challenge for most is persistence. It is easy to assume the feeling of wealth, love, health, or success for a few minutes while visualizing. But the moment the senses report a contradictory picture, the assumption is abandoned. This is where discipline becomes the dividing line between those who manifest with precision and those who live at the mercy of circumstances. The law is impartial. It does not respond to effort, but to the state you consistently embody. To hold your assumption in the face of opposing evidence is to prove your mastery over appearances. This is not about ignoring reality in the childish sense, but about understanding that what you call reality is already past. It is the harvest of former assumptions. You are not denying what is in front of you. You are refusing to make it the blueprint for your future. The law of assumption requires that you look beyond what is and remain loyal to what shall be, seeing it so vividly in your mind that the present conditions fade in importance. Feeling is the lifeblood of this process. Mere words or affirmations will do little if they are empty of emotion. The law is activated by the deep, inner knowing that your desire is already a fact, regardless of appearances. This is why an assumption without feeling is like a seed scattered on concrete. It cannot take root. You must enter into the end result in imagination until you feel its reality so completely that it becomes the only natural state to occupy. At that point, your outer life will reorganize itself to match. There is an elegance to the law of assumption that most overlook. It is not about forcing the world to comply. It is about quietly stepping into the role of the one who already has what they desire. You wear this role naturally, without strain, because you understand that reality is but a reflection of identity. The world must mirror who you are being, not who you are trying to become. The moment you live as the person you would be if your desire were fulfilled, you have fulfilled the requirement of the law. This is why those who master assumption seem to move through life with such certainty. They do not need to know the mechanics of how their desire will arrive. They rest in the fact that it already has. The path, the people, the timing, all these are drawn into alignment by the magnetic pull of their unwavering state. Every action they take is simply an expression of the reality they have already claimed. And because they never fall into the contradiction of wanting what they already possess in consciousness, they experience it in form with remarkable speed. The law of assumption works silently, without visible effort. One day you assume, and then the assumption hardens into fact, as naturally as a flower blooms in its season. To those who do not understand, it may appear as coincidence or good fortune, but to you it will be the inevitable result of living from the end. Once this law becomes your foundation, you will see that nothing in your world is beyond your reach. Not because you are controlling life, but because you have learned to control the only thing that truly matters, the state you choose to occupy. To hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled as present reality is to live as though the invisible were already visible. to breathe in the fragrance of a future scene until it feels as natural as the present moment. This is the true act of creation, for it transfers the center of your life from what is seen to what is unseen, from what is to what shall be. Most people approach their desires as if they are distant goals to be reached after a long sequence of events. But the secret is to collapse the distance entirely, to step into the end result now and claim it as your own in consciousness. Feeling is the bridge between the unseen cause and the visible effect. It is not enough to think about your desire as an abstract possibility. You must enter into it so fully that your body, your senses, and your emotions register it as an accomplished fact. This is why the power lies in the feeling state, for feeling is the language of the subconscious mind. It does not respond to logic or reasoning. It responds to the vivid emotional conviction that something is already true. When you assume the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you bypass the delays that come from doubt, questioning, or waiting for external proof. Imagine for a moment that the scene you long for has already unfolded. See it not from a distance, as if watching a play, but from the inside, through your own eyes, as a living participant. Touch the objects in that scene, hear the voices, notice the details that would be present if it were real. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the joy, or the calm that would accompany its fulfillment. The more vividly you can inhabit this inner reality, the more quickly it will take root. The subconscious mind, having accepted the feeling as real, sets about arranging the outer world to conform to that state. This practice requires an unwavering focus, for the senses will often report evidence to the contrary. The bank account may remain the same, the relationship may appear unchanged, the opportunity may not yet be in sight. But these are simply the shadows of old states, the remnants of former assumptions. To hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to refuse to let these shadows dictate your belief. You do not ignore them in blind denial. You simply give greater weight to the reality you carry within. This inner commitment transforms your relationship to time. Instead of waiting for the outer change to signal the moment to feel satisfied, you generate that satisfaction now. And because the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of the inner, it must eventually match the state you consistently occupy. What begins as an act of imagination becomes an effortless way of being, and from that being flows the sequence of events that deliver your desire. The challenge lies not in creating the feeling once, but in sustaining it until it becomes second nature. It is like holding a musical note without letting it fade. At first, it requires effort, but over time it becomes effortless, a constant tone that underlies your every thought and action. In the beginning, you may need to retreat often into the quiet, closing your eyes and revisiting the scene until the feeling is restored. Eventually, the scene lives in you without conscious effort, and you carry it with you into every moment of the day. To master this is to live in the end. You are no longer the person who is trying to become something. You are the person who already is. From this position, every thought, choice, and encounter is naturally colored by the state of fulfillment. Opportunities are recognized and acted upon without hesitation, because they are simply the next logical step in a reality you already occupy. The actions you take are no longer desperate attempts to cause an outcome. They are the effortless expression of an outcome already secured in consciousness. When you hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled as present reality, you are aligning yourself with the only creative power that truly exists, the power of being. You are not trying to force the world into shape. You are allowing it to reflect who you have chosen to be in the invisible. This choice, once made and sustained, must be honored by the law that governs all creation. The outer world cannot resist it, for it has no power apart from the inner image it reflects. In time, you will see the evidence with your eyes. but by then it will feel almost inevitable, as though it could not have been any other way. The joy will not only be in the fulfillment of the desire, but in the mastery you have gained over the process itself. You will have discovered that the key to life is not in waiting for the perfect conditions, but in creating them within yourself and holding to them until the world, like a faithful servant, brings them forth into the light. To ignore outer appearances that contradict your desire is to refuse to surrender your vision to the tyranny of the senses. It is the quiet art of holding to an inner conviction when everything around you seems to shout the opposite. This is not a denial of the physical world, nor is it a reckless dismissal of facts. It is the conscious understanding that what you see at this moment is nothing more than the residue of past assumptions, the fading echo of an old state of being. It has no true authority over what is to come unless you grant it power by believing it. Most people live as prisoners of appearances. If the bank account is low, they feel poor. If the phone is silent, they feel forgotten. If the opportunity has not yet arrived, they feel blocked. They make the mistake of thinking that appearances are the cause of their inner state, when in truth, appearances are only the result. The cause lies in the unseen, the beliefs, feelings, and assumptions you have been holding, often without even realizing it. To change your life, you must learn to give less weight to the visible and greater weight to the invisible reality you have chosen to create. This requires a certain steadiness of mind, for the senses will tempt you with constant evidence that seems to contradict your desire. They will point to the unpaid bill, the empty chair, the missed call, the absence of proof. They will whisper that nothing has changed. But appearances are slow to catch up to a new inner state, and if you abandon your vision in favor of the old evidence, you simply prolong the cycle. You must understand that the outer world is like a photograph. It is fixed at the moment it is developed, a snapshot of what once was. If you wish to see a new image, you must return to the darkroom of the mind and expose it to a different light. To ignore appearances is not to pretend they do not exist, but to refuse to make them the final word. You may acknowledge them without bowing to them. You may see the obstacle and yet hold to the conviction that it will dissolve. You may notice the absence of your desire and yet feel the satisfaction of having it. This is the mark of mastery, for it proves that you have learned to live from the end rather than toward it. Think of a sailor guided by the compass. The waters may be rough, the skies may be gray, but the compass points to the destination without regard for the temporary conditions. The sailor does not throw the compass overboard because the waves rise. He holds to it more firmly, knowing that it is the fixed reference that will bring him home. So it is with your inner conviction. It must become your compass, the point to which you always return, no matter what the outer world shows you. In the early stages, this can feel like walking a tightrope. You may find yourself swaying between the new state and the old evidence, tempted to believe one day and doubt the next. But each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled despite appearances, you strengthen your inner authority. You teach yourself that the senses are not masters to be obeyed, but servants to be directed. Eventually, their reports begin to change, not because you fought them, but because you changed the state they reflect. There will come a point when you notice the old appearances losing their grip on you. The unpaid bill no longer sparks fear because you already feel the abundance that will handle it. The silence from the person you love no longer stirs anxiety because you already feel the closeness of their presence. The seeming lack of opportunity no longer weighs on you because you already feel the certainty of the path unfolding. It is this detachment from appearances that speeds the arrival of your desire, for you have removed the resistance that comes from reacting to what is. You will find that life begins to bend in your favor without your forcing it. The situations that once seemed immovable shift easily. The people who once seemed distant draw near, and the opportunities that once seemed out of reach appear naturally. But this is not magic in the sense the world understands. It is the natural outworking of the law that the unseen precedes the seen. The moment you stop giving the old evidence power, you open the way for the new evidence to take its place. In time, you will regard appearances as you would passing clouds, temporary, insubstantial, unable to touch the truth of the sun that shines beyond them. And in that steady knowing, you will discover that the outer world has always been the shadow of the inner, and that by holding to the inner with unshakable faith, the shadow must inevitably change to match it. Conscious creation through sustained mental imagery is the deliberate act of shaping your life from within, holding a scene so consistently in your mind that it becomes the invisible mold from which your outer world is poured. Every image you persist in seeing with feeling is a seed planted in the fertile soil of the subconscious. And like any seed, it does not sprout instantly, but it grows quietly, unseen, until the day it emerges in full form. The outer world is nothing but the harvest of past images you have impressed upon yourself, many of them chosen unconsciously. The difference between those who drift through life and those who direct it lies in this single mastery, the ability to choose and sustain the images they wish to see reflected in reality. Mental imagery is not mere daydreaming. Daydreaming is passive, a loose drifting of thought without aim or structure. Conscious creation is active, intentional, and precise. It is the art of selecting the exact picture of the life you desire and giving it your full emotional attention until it becomes so real to you that the present conditions fade in importance. You are not simply watching a scene in your mind as if it were a movie. You are in it, moving through it, touching its details, feeling the emotions it evokes. This participation is the key, for it convinces the subconscious that the scene is not a wish but a fact. To sustain an image requires both focus and loyalty. The mind, left unchecked, will wander back to the old pictures it has been rehearsing for years. It will replay the disappointments, the limitations, the conditions you believe define you. These images are deeply ingrained because they have been given your attention repeatedly, and with that attention you're feeling. To replace them, you must persistently return to the chosen image, even when the mind tries to argue for the old reality. This is not a single act, but a daily discipline. A decision to occupy your inner vision with the world you intend to live in, no matter how different it may seem from the one your senses show you now. The reason this practice works is that the subconscious accepts the images you impress upon it as instructions. It does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one. It simply responds to the feeling and detail you provide. If you feed it images of lack, failure, and disappointment, it will faithfully produce situations that match those pictures. But if you feed it images of success, love, and abundance, sustained with the feeling that they are already real, it will just as faithfully arrange the conditions for their appearance. When you hold an image long enough, you begin to see its reflection in subtle ways before it arrives fully. Small signs will appear, coincidences, opportunities, conversations that seem to hint at its approach. These are not accidents. They are the early shoots of the seed breaking the surface. Many abandon their imagery too soon because they fail to recognize these signs as proof of progress. They look for the fully grown tree before the seed has even sprouted, and in their impatience, they uproot it. But the one who understands the process holds to the image regardless of what stage the outer manifestation has reached. Sustained mental imagery is also a safeguard against the influence of the outer world. Without it, the environment will constantly pull you back into its version of reality, dictated by the collective assumptions of those around you. But when you have a clear inner picture that you visit daily, you carry within you a private world that cannot be touched by the noise outside. This inner sanctuary becomes your true dwelling place, and from it you draw strength, clarity, and certainty. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. At first, sustaining an image may feel forced, but over time, it will live in you as easily as memory. You will no longer have to summon it deliberately. It will arise on its own, coloring your thoughts, shaping your moods, and guiding your actions. This is the point where the image has been accepted fully by the subconscious, and once accepted, it must externalize. You will notice that you begin to act in harmony with the image without consciously trying. The conversations you have, the decisions you make, and the paths you choose will all align with the reality you have been rehearsing within. The outer change may appear sudden to others, but you will know it was inevitable, for you have been living it in the unseen long before they could see it in the physical. To consciously create through sustained mental imagery is to step into the role of the artist of your life. You are no longer reacting to the images handed to you by past experience or the opinions of others. You are painting in deliberate strokes the masterpiece you choose to inhabit. And because the outer world is bound to reflect the inner vision, your persistence in holding the image guarantees that, in time, you will walk through it as easily as you once walked through the scenes you only imagined. The inner world as the blueprint for rapid manifestation is a truth so profound and yet so often overlooked that it remains hidden in plain sight. Every form, event, and circumstance in your life is constructed according to a pattern, and that pattern is not created in the outer world. It is shaped within you. The outer is the shell, the result, the finished sculpture. The inner is the mold, the invisible design from which the sculpture takes its form. To seek change in the shell without altering the mold is to labor endlessly against effects without ever touching the cause. The inner world is not a vague abstraction. It is a vivid landscape of thought, feeling, and belief that you inhabit every moment. This landscape determines the quality and direction of your life with mathematical precision. When you understand that what you hold within will eventually be projected outward, you stop trying to wrestle with the external and instead give your full attention to the inner pattern. The outer responds with exact fidelity, not because it chooses to, but because it must. Rapid manifestation occurs when the inner blueprint is held with such clarity and conviction that there is no room for contradiction. It is the divided mind that delays creation. One moment holding the vision, the next allowing doubt to erode it. Every time you abandon the inner image to bow to outer appearances, you weaken the pattern and slow its emergence. But when you remain loyal to the blueprint regardless of what the senses report, you compress the time between conception and birth. The outer has no choice but to match the form that exists in the inner with such persistence. To work with the inner blueprint requires that you become intimately familiar with it. You must know the details of your desired reality as you know the lines of your own hand. You walk through it in imagination, feeling its atmosphere, touching its surfaces, hearing its sounds. You do not visit it as a stranger. You live there as a resident. This residency in the unseen is what solidifies the blueprint so completely that the outer world bends to accommodate it. Without this intimacy, the image remains faint and easily displaced by the noise of the outer. Every moment you spend cultivating the inner design is an investment in the outer result. It is not wasted time to sit in quiet, eyes closed, breathing life into the vision. In those moments, you are setting the coordinates of your life with greater accuracy than any amount of outer effort could accomplish. Outer action has its place, but if it is not guided by the blueprint, it becomes random and often exhausting. When it is guided by the inner world, it is precise, efficient, and supported by unseen currents that seem to arrange circumstances in your favor. It is important to understand that the outer is not a separate reality. It is a reflection, much like an image in a mirror. You do not attempt to change the reflection by pressing against the glass. You change what stands before it. If you desire a different reflection, you alter the position, the expression, the form of the one looking into the mirror. In the same way, you adjust the inner world until it matches the life you wish to see, and the outer cannot help but comply. This process demands consistency, for the outer will often show remnants of the old blueprint for a time. These remnants are nothing to fear. They are simply the final expressions of a pattern you no longer claim. They fade as the new design takes hold, and the speed with which they fade depends entirely on how faithfully you hold to the new inner state. The more unwavering your loyalty, the more quickly the outer world will reflect it. Rapid manifestation is not a matter of forcing life to move faster. It is the removal of all inner resistance that slows it down. Resistance is born of doubt, contradiction, and scattered attention. The blueprint must be clean, clear, and uninterrupted by images that oppose it. This is why a single, vivid, emotionally charged vision, sustained over time, can produce results with astonishing speed. It is pure, unchallenged, and aligned with the law that governs creation. When you realize the inner world is the only true blueprint, you begin to treat it with reverence. You guard it from images that do not serve you. You nurture it with feelings that match your desire, and you return to it again and again until it becomes as real to you as anything you can touch. And once it is real within, it is inevitable without. The outer world, in all its complexity, is simply the unfolding of that inner simplicity, the quiet certainty of a vision so complete that nothing remains but for life to match it. And so you see, the power to manifest anything, whether it be love, wealth, health, or the life of your highest vision, was never something to be earned or given from outside. It has always been within you, quietly shaping every breath you take and every path you walk. The world you see before you now is only the shadow of the world you have already built within. The speed with which that shadow shifts depends entirely on your loyalty to the unseen. When you live from the state of the wish fulfilled, when you choose your assumptions with care, when you feel the reality of your desire, now rather than later, when you ignore the whispers of contradiction from appearances, when you hold the image with unwavering persistence, and when you recognize the inner world as the only true blueprint, you are no longer at the mercy of time, chance, or circumstance. You have stepped into the place where creation is instant, where reality bends to the authority of your inner knowing. Life will seem to move in ways you could never plan, bringing people, events, and opportunities into your orbit with such precision that it will feel as though the universe has conspired solely for you. But you will know there is no mystery, no magic beyond your own being. It is simply the inevitable reflection of who you have chosen to be within. And from this moment on, the only question that remains is not whether you can manifest anything 110 times faster, but whether you are willing to live each day as if it were already done.